It's always a joy to deliver a bit of good news.
If anyone has an excuse to stop singing, it's Pastor Jason David.
Surviving tongue cancer.
Tongue cancer spread to his throat and other parts of his body.
Pastor Jason David lost 60% of his tongue to the disease, and doctors could not promise that he would sing or even talk again.
The South Bay pastor is inspiring millions around the world tonight.
The song, These Walls.
The song went viral with more than 5 million views, translated into 12 languages and performed in 25 countries across the world.
People in at least 15 different countries are now singing that song. It's being translated into Chinese, Swedish, Tagalog, and Spanish.
This is my song. This is my dare to worship you, even as these walls are standing there. And this is my song, and this is my prayer, and I will declare, yeah, that nothing is too hard for you. There's nothing you can't do. I'll keep my eyes on you, and watch these walls start crumbling. These walls start crumbling down, 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 down. So much. Y'all are too kind.
It's always a joy to deliver a bit of good news.
If anyone has an excuse to stop singing, it's Pastor Jason David.
Surviving tongue cancer.
Tongue cancer spread to his throat and other parts of his body.
Pastor
Really appreciate you allowing me to come be a part of this. I appreciate the introduction. I've been to some churches where the senior pastor forgot my name. And so when he introduced me, he was like, "Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for the cancer guy." And it was like, yeah. And not my favorite thing to be the cancer guy. It was never what I was going for. That was never my brand. Was I want to be the poster child for cancer. Especially because I am so much more than just a cancer guy. Because I've been bitten by a seagull. No one ever talks about this. I've never been introduced as the seagull guy. Never had a standing ovation. Seagull! I've been sprayed by a skunk. No one ever talks about this. I've never been introduced as the skunk guy. Although I don't know if that'd be much better. My wife and I used to have this little black furry bunny, really cute. We named him Snickers because he looked delicious. And we lost him in the backyard and the sun was going down. So we were trying to find him. So I'm like, "Babe, we just gotta find some black fur." And I found some and it sprayed me. So I run inside the house and I'm trying to find weapons, but it's California. We don't have weapons. And so I found some avocados that were going bad. And I started chucking avocados at the skunk. And he came back the next day with his family and had a feast. So that backfired. I've also been chased by a beaver. This happened in Colorado. Very scary. I was ambushed by a possum. My mom, I was like 5, and my mom was like, "Hey, Jason, go do laundry." And I walked outside, and I opened up this closet door where the dryer was, and on top of the dryer was a possum. And I know you think, like, "Oh, they're cute." No. And he opened his mouth. He had, like, they have fangs. They're of the devil. And he went at me, and I slammed the door. I ran inside. I said, "Mom, there's a demon in the closet. I knew God told me not to do laundry." So my mom went and she cast the possum out. I've also been tackled by a Rottweiler. That was legit scary. That one, I thought I was going to die. I was like, "It's not even cancer yet." And he had his paws on my shoulder, his hot breath on my neck. His teeth were clamping down. I had to get some Neosporin. And I've been stung by a bee. But apparently none of these things are buzz-worthy enough to be talked about. Thank you, one person. Thank you. That was gracious. I'm still known as the cancer guy. And I've noticed that we do this in church a lot. We identify and label people based on their tragedy, based on the thing that tried to conquer them, the worst moment of their life. We'll be like, hey, you know that one guy? Which guy? He just got a divorce. Oh, that guy. You know that one family? Which family? They just lost their home in the fire. Oh, that family. You know that one girl? Which girl? She just lost her mom. Oh, that girl. And we identify people based on the thing that tried to conquer them. And I came to let you know you are so much more than your tragedy. You are so much more than the thing that tried to conquer you. You are more than a conqueror. And I am more than a cancer guy. I'm a seagull guy. I'm a skunk guy. I'm a Rottweiler guy. But I got to tell you about one more animal that tried to kill me. This legitimately was scary. To do that, I need to take you with me to the beaches of San Diego, California. We're going to go there together. You can kind of hear the sounds and close your eyes. Pretend you're there. Just take it in. Take a whiff. Take a whiff of that weird politics. Isn't that nice? My wife and I were newly married. We were in those first 2 years. You know how in those first 2 years, you're still trying to, when you get married, you're still trying to tell your wife, like, no, you made a good decision. You know what I'm talking about? Like, you're still trying to impress her. Like, you know, after 2 years, you're like, just kidding, this is what you got, you know? But I was still in the first 2 years where I still wear cologne. So, we were newly married, still trying to impress her. And so I took her to the beach, this beach in San Diego. And I wanted to take her to rent a longboard. If you're wondering what a longboard is just a really long surfboard for people who are not athletic. And so we rented this longboard, and I was like, you know what would really impress her? I'm going to take her past all the waves. So that's what I did. We got on this longboard, we went past all the waves. And now, we were sitting on the board with our feet dangling in the water because we're not athletes here. And my wife says, Jason, I'm a little scared of the sharks. I was like, babe, it's San Diego. We don't have any sharks. They're all locked up at SeaWorld. No parole. So we go out there. All of a sudden, my wife starts shaking. She starts screaming. She points down into the water and she yells, shark! I was like, come on. And then I looked down, and sure enough, I saw a shadowy figure. Now, SeaWorld taught me this. A dolphin moves like this. But a shark goes like this. I'm gonna kill you, right? So I looked down and I studied this shadowy figure, and sure enough, it wasn't doing this. It was doing this. I'm gonna kill you. So as manly as I could, I lifted my feet out of the water and I sat on them. At this point, my wife is getting pretty scared, but the shark swims away. So I'm like, all right, that was crazy. But then he comes back with 2 other sharks. They start circling the board. At this point, I'll be honest with you, I'm getting a little nervous. My wife is shaking and screaming, so much so that we're about to tip over, which at that point, it would kind of be on her if we die. So I'm sitting on the back trying to balance out the weight, and I knew I needed to say something to calm her down. So I said, honey, do not fear. God is with us. I didn't mean it. Don't give me any credit. I didn't feel God at all. I just thought it might make her feel better. And yet, as soon as I said, God is with us, a wave formed out of nowhere. Remember, we were past all the waves. A wave formed out of nowhere, picked up our board, and started taking us to the shore. Now, the shore was littered with hundreds and hundreds of tourists, mostly from Arizona. And I'll be honest with you, as I held on to that board for dear life, I did not try not to hit them. And yet somehow, as that wave brought our board in, we didn't hit a single Arizonian. We got to the shore, went to my backpack, my phone was ringing. I answered it. It was my mom. And she said, Jason David, And that's when I knew I was in trouble. Because Jason David is my middle name. My last name is Slider, but it looks like Sludder. So I go by Jason David. And my mom actually let my 5-year-old brother name me. Do you know how close I was to be named Poop Nugget? That was for the kids. Because the kids are in this service, right? All right, I got more where those came from. But apparently my brother, he had a best friend named Jason, another best friend named David, and he named me after his best friends. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Yeah, I know, right? So she said, Jason David. I was like, yes, Mom. Are you okay? Well, actually, Allie and I were just surrounded by sharks. And she said, I knew it. I knew you were in danger because 5 minutes ago, God dropped it in my spirit to pray for you. What I find fascinating about this story is I did not feel God at all. If I can be honest with you, you know what I felt? Fear, panic, embarrassment because I was trying to impress my wife. It totally backfired. I was ashamed because I put her in danger, but I didn't feel God. And yet, when I spoke that God is with us, God showed up. That's really generous of him. But what I want to talk about this morning is what do you do when you're going through a situation in life where you don't feel God? What do you do when you're going through a situation in life where you don't hear God's voice, you don't see God moving? What do you do when it feels like God has gone silent? Because sometimes we think, oh, I must be a bad Christian. If I don't feel God, I must be a bad Christian. I'll be honest with you. I don't think there is such a thing as a bad Christian. I also don't think there's such a thing as a good Christian. I think we all fall short of the glory of God, and God qualifies us anyway. But when you read the Bible and you read about these men and women who we now call Bible heroes, almost every single one of them went through a season where God was silent, where they didn't feel God. The question I have today is, what do you do when you're going through that season? To answer that question, I want to ask you another question. Have you ever played Where's Waldo? Put your hand in the air. Have you ever played? A few of us? Love it, love it. All right, if you don't know what Where's Waldo is, let me explain it. It's a series of children's books that are also games. And there'll be like a picture with a bunch of like cartoon characters, maybe like 100 cartoon characters. And one of them will be dressed like this amazing trendy guy right here. Red and white stripes and a beanie and some glasses. And your goal is to find Waldo. And I thought we could try to play this game right now. So ladies and gentlemen, and let's be for the kids. Kids, you to play this game. I'm sorry, adults. Kids, Waldo came to Powerhouse Church today. Can you find Waldo sitting amongst you? If you can find Waldo, point him or her out. You found Waldo. Good job. That is Waldo. That's actually my wife, Allison. That's not Waldo. Thank you, Levy. So that's how you play Waldo. And here's why I love Where's Waldo, because the publisher of those books makes me a promise. The publisher says, hey, Jason, because they know my name. Hey, Jason, when you read my book, I promise you that Waldo is on every page of my book. You just have to look hard enough. If you seek me, you will find me when you search for me with all of your heart. That's actually the book of Jeremiah. That's not Waldo. That was a test. But I love that promise because when I get to a really hard level on a Where's Waldo book, where I can't find Waldo anywhere, I remember that promise, and it gives me peace, and it helps me not to give up, because I know that the publisher told me Waldo is on every page of this book. So, I know Waldo is powerful, right? So, I was a cheap date, and I took my wife to Barnes & Noble because I thought Barnes & Noble was like a library, you know? Like you go in there, you sit down, you grab a book, you read it, you put it back, you find another one, you read it, finish it, put it back. They want your money. What? They're actually trying to run a business. So I took my wife there, and I said, hey, for our date today, because the sharks didn't work out, for our date today, let's go to the kids section of Barnes & Noble, and let's play Where's Waldo. So we grab level 1. It was so easy. I was like, what is this, made for kids? Yes. Level 2, beat it. Level 3, beat it. Level 4, beat it. Level 5, they kicked us out. They literally came to the back in the kids section, saw these 2 full-grown adults playing Where's Waldo, realized they're not going to pay us anything, and escorted us out of the building. It was at this moment I did something very dangerous. I used the internet, and I found a website where they have taken Where's Waldo books, and they've scanned the pages onto their website so that people like me can download them / pirate them for free. Is that legal? No. Am I perfect? Wow, thank you. That was kind of hurtful. But you are correct. I am not. So I went straight to level 5. I printed it out from the internet, and I started looking. I gotta be honest with you. Level 5 was tough. I searched for 2 weeks. Couldn't find Waldo. I showed my wife, and she was like, maybe we should get a life. I showed my friends. They couldn't find Waldo. I searched for another 2 months and could not find Waldo. And then I discovered something. This website will scan photos from Waldo books, put them online, and then Photoshop Waldo out of the picture so that idiots like me will spend our entire life trying to find Waldo, and he's not there. That's what I get for not going to the source. But I'll be honest with you. There are times in my life where it feels like God has been photoshopped out of my life. Because my pastor tells me he's there. The worship music I listen to, it tells me that God is there. And yet I'm looking around and I don't feel God. I don't see God. I don't hear God. What do you do when you feel like God has gone silent? To answer that question, we're going to talk about Moses today. I want to introduce you to Moses and his arch nemesis, Pharaoh. Oh, my cow just died. What? There's a fire! There is a fire! Who turned off the lights? What is happening? Yo, I can tell you. Who are you? Now, this is a story all about how my life got flipped, turned upside down, and I'd like to take a minute. Can you even believe it? How I became known as the Fresh Prince of Egypt. Y'all are so fun. I like to call Moses the Fresh Prince of Egypt before Fresh Prince started slapping people on stage. But I like to call him the Fresh Prince of Egypt Now, my wife and I, when the pandemic started taking off in 2020, my wife and I launched a video streaming platform on Roku and Amazon and Apple TV and on apps and everything called My Tribe. And we take families through the Bible in chronological order. And that was a clip from our episode in season 2 where we meet the Fresh Prince of Egypt, Moses. And we use a lot of pop culture references because did you know that Jesus also used pop culture references? Back then, sheep were the pop culture. But he used pop culture references. And what I love about what we do with My Tribe is kids, now when they see a Fresh Prince reference or they see a Waldo book, you know what their brain thinks about? What they learned in the Bible. And we've been redeeming the things of this world. And everywhere a kid goes, he thinks, oh, well, that's when I learned about Jesus. That's when I learned about Moses. That's when I learned. So anyway, Fresh Prince of Egypt. God comes to Moses. Now, Moses grew up in the palace, and even though he was Hebrew, he grew up in the Egyptian palace. And he began to have a change of heart where he really began to have a heart for his people who were in slavery. And one day he saw an Egyptian beating up on a Hebrew slave. And Moses was moved with anger, and he got in one little fight, and he killed a guy. And he kills this Egyptian. Soon he becomes Egypt's most wanted, and he goes on the run, and he hides in the desert. And it's during this moment that God appears to Moses and talks to him through a burning bush, which when I'm in California, I have to explain what a burning bush is. Thank you. So, God's speaking to the burning bush, and God says basically, Moses, I want you to go back to Egypt, go with Pharaoh, and tell Pharaoh to let my people go, deliver my people out of slavery. And Moses is like, but God, I don't speak good. Because Moses had a stuttering problem. I love the story of Moses because Moses had a speech impediment, and that's what I have. So I've had some people ask me, Jason, I noticed that you do a character voice in your videos, and you're still doing it right now. When do you ever stop doing that character voice? This is not a character voice. I didn't walk around thinking I want everybody to think I'm Sid the Sauce from Ice Age. No. I lost 80% of my tongue to cancer. It left me with a speech impediment. And I gotta be honest with you, it was hard to get back up on stage and preach. It's hard being a full-grown man sounding like a 5-year-old boy. Repent, It was hard to get back up and preach in front of other adults. So I resonate with Moses when Moses says, God, this is embarrassing. You want me to get up in front of Pharaoh, who's really well educated, who a great linguist. I've got to get up, and you want this mouth to represent you? I love that. And what God tells Moses is, Moses, what's in your hand? And Moses is like, oh yeah, I got this Gandalf stick. What God is saying is, Moses, I've already empowered you to do everything I've called you to do. Everything you will need is already in your grasp. You just got to go be obedient. So Moses goes to Egypt, and I think it's really amazing because when Moses uses the staff, he makes blood appear, which I'm like, that's a crazy party trick. Can you imagine inviting Moses to your kid's birthday party and be like, all right, but don't drink the Kool-Aid. It didn't used to be red. It's not Kool-Aid. He makes frogs appear. He makes all kinds of crazy stuff. God empowers him, and it's amazing. And finally, Pharaoh says, enough is enough. Take your stick and go. So Moses is headed out, and Whitney Houston's singing. It's amazing. All of Israel is headed to the promised land. Headed to a new life. The past is behind them. Slavery is behind them. The traumatic experience of what they grew up in is now behind them. And they're headed to a new hope and a new future. And then, boom, they find themselves stuck in front of the Red Sea, which today is blue. They find themselves stuck in front of the Red Sea, and they can't move forward, and they can't go back. Also, they can't stay here because now the Egyptian army is chasing them. Have you ever been stuck between your future and your past? I can't move forward, and I can't go back, and I can't stay here. What I've noticed is when you stay in the same place for too long, the things you thought you conquered come back to conquer you. Moses stops moving forward, and everything that they thought they conquered from their past is now coming back to haunt them. For many of us, this is what COVID-19 looked like. In our marriages, we started making progress. Less arguments, it was great. And then boom, we were stuck inside the same house 24 hours a day. And everything you thought you conquered, all that progress is gone. And that past, those habits, those addictions, coming back to get you because you stopped moving forward. It's at this moment, as Moses is standing there, feeling stuck, that God's people gather around him, and they do what God's people do best. They complain. Can I just say something? Did you know Moses wanted to quit ministry many times, and it was never because of Pharaoh? It was because of God's people. Most pastors who quit don't quit because of Satan. They quit because God's people sound like Satan. Because Satan is supposed to be the voice of the accuser, but God's people are doing all the accusing and all the gossiping and all the backbiting. And we're like, man, Satan's working hard. I don't think he is. I think he's sitting back like, man, they're doing a better job than I ever did. But that's not this church. That's a different church. So I'll keep going. God's people start complaining, Moses, you just bring us out here to die? You're so bad at this. You're so bad at leading a group. So then Moses gives this great speech. And I'm going to paraphrase it. He basically says, do not fear. God is with us. But then he adds one more sentence. Like he does a whole paragraph about how God has been faithful and he's been with us ever since Egypt and all this stuff. But then he adds one more sentence. And it's such a raw human moment. It's just Moses reminding you that he's not an angel. He is a man who is tired of hearing God's people complain. Don't get mad at me, because I'm just going to quote Moses. This is in your Bible. Parents, don't get mad at me. Moses basically says, do not fear. God is with us. Now, everybody shut up. It's in your Bible. It might be the Message, but it's in your Bible. I think NIV says be still or be silent, and ESV says shut your mouth, which, come on, that's a biblically polite way of saying shut up. And listen, parents, I understand that the only thing your kid is going to remember from today's service now is Moses said shut up. But you know what? You told me you wanted your kids to memorize scripture, so there you go. There you go. They memorized scripture. You just weren't specific. Which ones? I love this. I thought I would go back in time and take some of the greatest speeches and make them more biblical, add a little Moses to them. Like, watch this. I have a dream that y'all would shut up. Like, wow. Powerful. Abraham Lincoln, 77 years ago. Shut up, South. I told that one in Arkansas, and they were good sports. Here's a safer one. Ask not what your country can do for you. Just stop asking and shut up. It's in your Bible. Can you imagine if Pastor Robert ended next week's sermon like this? On your way out, just don't forget to shut up. What? It sounds like they really want you to end the service like that. That felt like approval. What I love is Moses is saying, you need to stop talking because you are speaking death. Because in the beginning, God spoke and he created. Now you might notice there's a big space and gap between me and the first row. You know why? Because I spit. When I speak, I spit. When I speak, my DNA goes out and touches a bunch of people. Powerhouse was prepared for this, and they made sure there was a big gap. Either that or Pastor Robert also spits. I will assume that there's normally more chairs. So, when I'm created in the image of God, when God spoke, his DNA went into everything that he created, and his DNA is inside of me. So, when I speak, I can create and I can destroy. And Moses is saying, you are speaking death and destruction, so shut up. I mean, he's basically Thumper. If you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all. It's a Bambi reference if you didn't know what that was. Stop speaking death. But then, I love this because in the very next verse, God says to Moses, Moses, why are you crying out to me? That tells me that there's like a line missing. Here's what it is. Do not fear, God is with us. Help! Have you ever had to tell someone something and then tell God the truth? Like, I know we hated wearing masks during COVID to church, but we've been wearing masks to church for years. We've been showing up, pretending I am okay. The enemy is under my feet. Help! Because when you're hiding, you're not healing. Whatever you keep in the dark cannot be touched by the light. Moses is crying out to God, and God's like, why are you screaming at me? But the truth is, Moses has the same questions that the people have. God, why did you bring us out here just to die? Moses is just as confused and just as scared as the people of God. And Moses is like, God, what do you want me to do? And I love this. God says to him, move forward. It's the last thing God ever says to him in this moment, move forward. And I love how unhelpful that is. Right? Moses is like, hey, God, there's a Red Sea here. And apparently none of them swim or build boats. So, God, there's a Red Sea here. What should we do? Move forward. I'm going to rephrase this. God, I cannot move forward. What do you want me to do? Sometimes we want a new word from God because we didn't obey the old word. We're like, I need some new manna. I need a new revelation. What does God want me to do? It's like, yeah, but you didn't even do the last thing he told you to do. Sometimes you're like, I need to hear from God. But maybe you need to do the last thing he put on your heart to do. God tells him, move forward. And that's it. And then God goes silent. And you might be wondering, why is God silent in my life? why should he trust you with more revelation when you're not being a good keeper with the revelation he already gave you? And that's when Moses remembers Gandalf's stick. And I like to imagine he got a little cocky. All right, all you haters. I've been seeing those tweets. Miriam, Aaron, you're supposed to have my back. He goes up to the Red Sea. Because remember, the last time he touched it, turned to blood, frogs, crazy stuff, right? So he's expecting, as soon as I do this, boom, it's going to blow up. It's going to be crazy. Ha! Hero pose. Now, this is where Hollywood gets it so wrong. Besides Harvey Weinstein and everything else they got wrong. I wasn't sure how that one would go over. Cool. Because in the movies, when Moses puts out his stick or touches the water, boom, massive explosion, water's blowing up. It's incredible special effects. Jellyfish are dying. Someone's like, I found Nemo. It's epic. The special effects department gets together like, all right, this is where we spent all the money. We definitely didn't pay for good actors. Here we go. But there's a danger when we get our theology from movies. Because then we start asking God, how come you're not doing for me what you did for Moses? Because when you actually read the Bible, it's a crazy concept that Christians haven't caught on to. When you read the Bible, it's not what happened in the movies. I think it went more like this. All right, you haters. Maybe not that part. All right, here we go. Huh. Hey, God. Remember? Okay. Ha! 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 Shazam! Wakanda, I don't know. You know what? This stick, I've used it a lot. Maybe it's tired. I got something else. Here we go. Whew. All right, here we go. I knew I loved this church. More love, more thunder. Ha! Ha! No, all right. It's all right. It's all right. I got something else. Here we go. All right, here we go. Hulk smash! Nothing. All right. Don't worry, I got more. All right, it's going to raise my voice up an octave. All right, here we go. All right. A little imagination. Just like everything else at Disney right now, it doesn't work. Baby Yoda, here we go. Baby Yoda, come on. Ah! It doesn't feel it, I promise. Watch. I'm just kidding. All right, this next one's a long shot, but I brought it, so I might as well. Here we go. I gotta put the mic down for this. Are we okay? All right, here we go. Woo. I'm not sure why this would work, but all right, my friends, I've got one more, but it's pretty dangerous. Should we go for it? That's good because the joke would have ended awkwardly early. All right. Here we go. All right, here we go. Here we go. Everyone stand back. Oh, snap. Half of Israel just disappeared. They told me this was a kids service, so I love you guys. I like to imagine Moses standing there and nothing's happening. And you might be shocked, but Jason, in the movies, it happened immediately. Well, let's read Exodus 14 together. Watch this. Then Moses stretched out his hand over the sea and... How long? All night. What? All night. The Lord drove the sea back with a strong... What? East. You know what's amazing? It could have said west wind, north wind, south by southwest. It could have said so many different things. It says east wind. And you might think, well, it's just a random detail. I don't think God just does random details. That one word changes this entire story. Watch this. I brought a map. We have Egypt, Red Sea, and the Promised Land. Now let me show you Israel's route. Let me show you where they're headed. They're leaving Egypt, crossing the Red Sea, headed to the Promised Land. Now check this out, my friends. Let me show you which side is the west side and the east side. West side, Egypt is the west side, Promised Land is the east side. Let me remind you where Israel is camped out. Israel is camped out on the west side. If you ever come to East LA, don't say that. You'll get shot. West side. Israel is on the west side. But the Bible said that the wind was blowing from the east side. Wait a minute. Have you ever had a hot cup of cocoa or hot soup or coffee and you were blowing on it? From which direction did the liquid part from you? Away from you. So if God is blowing the water from the east side, I think he just parted the Red Sea on the opposite side. That's the wrong side. Has God ever answered your prayer the wrong way? Like, God, I prayed for a husband, but him? You laughed too hard. Has God ever answered your prayer the wrong way? I like to imagine Moses takes his stick. He's standing up to the Red Sea. He's expecting that as soon as I give the hero pose, one day they're going to make a great movie. As soon as I give the hero pose, I'm going to feel a giant wind from behind me, part the Red Sea immediately in front of me. Then he walks up, goes boom, and all he feels is more wind in his face. Have you ever prayed and then things got worse? Like, God, I was expecting you would answer my prayer by having a giant wind come from behind me and make me look really cool for the movie poster. I expected you to part the Red Sea at my feet, because I don't want to get wet, and I expected it to happen immediately. And instead, I am now standing here. The water has not moved. However, the wind has gotten harder in my face. You're doing it wrong. Potentially, Moses can't even see the other side. But all night, God has been making a way for him. All night, God has been parting the Red Sea from the opposite side. And he has to stand there and trust that even when you can't see God, even when you can't feel God, God is on every page of your story, and your story is not over. Moses potentially can't even see what God is doing. And for a moment, he probably wonders, why? Why doesn't God answer my prayer the way I want and when I want? Have you ever wondered that? God, why don't you answer my prayers the way I want and when I want? Because then he wouldn't be God. You would be. If God did what you want when you want, he is no longer your God. And this is no longer faith nor a relationship. This is a dictatorship, and you become the tyrant. God likes to do things, I've discovered this. He likes to do things in his own time and his own way. And it's confusing. It's confusing because it means I actually have to trust. And I don't like that. I like to sing about it, but I don't like to live it. It's not comfortable. But watch this. Have you ever been blowing liquid and it's going away from you? What happens when you stop? It falls back on itself, starting at the opposite end. Now watch this. As Israelites being crossing the Red Sea, the Egyptians start following them through the Red Sea. And God has been keeping it apart. And then there's a moment where God goes, and the Red Sea falls on Egypt. Wait. You mean God knew what he was doing? What? God, I see what you did there. Hindsight's always 20/20. It turns out you knew what you were doing. Props to you this time, God. Next year, I'll still be afraid. Because every year, I like to make God resubmit his resume. I love you guys. You guys are making me preach too long. So I'll wrap it up. Listen. Moses has to stand there, and potentially he can't even see what God is doing. But God has been making a way all night, knowing that what Moses is going to need is his enemies and his past washed away. And God has to do it God's way. And listen, I had to live this. I had to live this. At age 28, I was diagnosed with stage 4 tongue cancer. It was the type of cancer, they said, it's the type of cancer you get in your 60s when you've been chewing tobacco for like 30 years. I was 28, so the doctor asked, how old were you when you started chewing tobacco? I was like, let's see. I came out and I was like, light me up. Just kidding. I don't even know if you light up tobacco. I don't know. I never did drugs. It didn't make any sense. I asked my doctor, okay, I never did drugs, I didn't drink, like, how did I get cancer? You know what he said to me? Really bad luck. I looked it up. It's not scientific. Doctors couldn't explain it. First, they removed 20% of my tongue, half the lymph nodes in my neck. Did a bunch of surgeries. My body had a seizure. I collapsed. I lost all heat in my body. Crazy stuff. They stapled my hip. They drilled a hole in my hip. They stapled my hip. I was in a wheelchair. They were like, we don't know if you're going to walk again. It was a crazy time. After a few months of that, I was able to go back to work. But then the cancer came back, more aggressive, stage 4. And this time they had to remove another 60% of my tongue. 80% of my tongue, all the lymph nodes in my neck. And this time they took this giant chunk of my arm and this vein, and they made a new tongue. So I don't know if you ever heard of people who speak with their foot in their mouth? But I literally talk with my arm in my mouth. I'm doing it right now. It's crazy. But I remember when I woke up from it was like a 15-hour surgery. And they said, after this, you're going to be in the hospital for a few weeks, and then you're going to do 8 weeks of chemotherapy, 35 rounds of radiation, all that stuff. And I woke up after a 15-hour surgery, and my tongue was so swollen because it was like an arm. It was crazy swollen. I couldn't breathe through my mouth. And they put feeding tubes in my nose, but something got ripped, and my nose was bleeding, and it clogged up, so I couldn't breathe through my nose or through my mouth. And they'd put a tube in my neck, a trach, but my body started rejecting it with mucus, and so I could not breathe through my neck, my mouth, or my nose. And that's when I discovered you cannot breathe through your ear holes or your butt. Just trying to keep it light because it's about to get heavy. And every 15 minutes, I would suffocate, and my heart would beat, and the doctor would rush in with a thin little vacuum tube and shove it down my neck and suck everything out. And 15 minutes later, do it again. And this went on for days, and I couldn't sleep. All the buttons were going off, all the nurses rushing back and forth. So much fear and anxiety. I couldn't sleep, and I wasn't in a good place mentally. And I knew what lied before me. They told me, we don't think you're ever going to speak again. We don't think you're going to sing again. I was scared. And then they had me on so much pain medicine to help with the pain. But pain medicine blocks your body up from using the restroom, and that can kill you. And so they gave me Senna. That helps your body to be able to function. But one nurse ended her shift by giving me Senna. And the next nurse began her shift by giving me Senna. And I don't know if you've ever been overdosed on Senna, but it is a party downtown. And I will never forget the most humiliating moment of my entire life. I've never felt less of a human. I've never felt less of a man than sitting on the cold hospital floor of the bathroom, sitting in my own waste, covered in my own blood, mucus, and vomit, screaming, but I couldn't make a sound. Shaking, panicking. And I'll be honest with you, in that moment, I did not feel God. I did not feel peace. You know what I felt? Fear, panic, anxiety, confusion, anger, but I didn't feel God. The nurses came in, they cleaned me all up, they put me back in the hospital bed, and as they did that, my brain could only remember one thing that the doctor told me. The doctor said, Jason, it will get worse for the next 5 days. 5 days? I can't even do 5 more minutes of this. I hadn't slept in many days, so all I knew at the time was simple math. The pain hurts too much. I want the pain to stop. If I kill myself, the pain will stop. So I began looking around the hospital room for a way to kill myself. But I didn't want to use anything sharp. I'll be honest, that really limits your options. But I was tired of being poked. I was tired of them coming in with their needles every 30 minutes and trying to find my vein. I was tired of hurting. So I want to kill myself, but I don't want it to hurt. So I grabbed my phone and I typed, easy ways to die. It was around this time that my wife showed up. It was around 9 p.m. She showed up at the hospital and she took one look at me and she just knew. My husband is giving up. And she didn't know what to do. She didn't know what to say. And you know what I love about my wife? When she didn't know what to say, she grabbed my hand, and you know what she said? Nothing. And I'll be honest with you, that's the best thing she could have said. Because I was a pastor. I sat in that bed debating myself. I knew all the bumper stickers. I knew all the t-shirt slogans. I knew all the scripture verses. And none of them in that moment helped. There's nothing she could have said to me that would have made me feel any better. Someone with really good intention had wrote me a note and it said, "This is God's plan." And the nurse put it up on the wall. And I was like, communicated to them, rip that down. Because I hate this plan. What are you, Drake? This is not God's plan. I hate this plan. I don't want this to be God's plan. And I'm not even sure if it was. I think we live in a world where sin has run rampant and innocent people suffer. You don't have to be okay with what happened to you. You don't have to pretend like what happened to you as a child was right or okay. It's okay to not be okay. And my wife grabbed my hand, and when words weren't enough, she wept. And I love that because that's exactly what Jesus would do. Because Jesus had a friend named Lazarus, and Lazarus had two sisters, Mary and Martha. And as Lazarus was dying, his sisters wrote to Jesus, "Jesus, your friend whom you love is dying. Come quickly." And guess what? Jesus was late again. I don't know what the excuse was. My donkey ran out of gas, or my donkey had too much gas. I don't know. But he shows up late. Lazarus is already dead. And the sisters run to Jesus, and one sister breaks down crying in front of Jesus, and she says, "Jesus, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." You know what she's saying? This is on you. This is your fault. You could have stopped this. Why didn't you? Why did you let it happen? You're such a bad friend. You're such a bad God. And if there's anyone in this moment who could have said the perfect sentence, the perfect scripture verse, the perfect bumper sticker, if there was anyone who could have said the right thing, it was Jesus. And Jesus looked at her, and you know what he said? Nothing. Jesus wept. Because Christians often don't know how to walk other people through their pain. We want people to get over the grieving. We want to tell people how they should be feeling. We want people to fast forward the emotional part because it's too hard to walk them through it. And Jesus, who, by the way, is about to raise Lazarus from the dead, but doesn't want to give away the spoiler alert, he literally pauses, knowing what he's about to do. He pauses and weeps to communicate to you and me that it's okay to not be okay. That God cries with you. That God is not okay with what happened to you. That you are not alone in your grieving, and there was a time to mourn. He cries with her. He steps into her emotions. He let himself feel what she was feeling. And after they've cried, he then looks at her and he says, "Show me where you buried him." Oh, I love this part. I'm going a little longer. I'm sorry. I didn't get to say this part in the last service. Show me where you buried him. In other words, some of us here, we've buried some things pretty deep. We haven't told anyone about things that happened to us when we were kids. We buried it so deep, and it has festered. The bitterness has festered like a poison. It has changed the way we parent. It has changed the way we do marriage. And Jesus is saying, show me where the bodies are buried. Tell me about that memory that you haven't told anybody else about. Take me to that moment when you were 5 and that person touched you. Tell me what it was like when you found out your parents were getting a divorce. Take me to that memory. Because I want to cry with you. And then I want to resurrect some things from the dead. But I cannot resurrect if you won't tell me where you buried him. You've been hiding for too long, thinking that somehow it was your fault. You have nothing to be ashamed of. I don't know who I'm talking to, but you've got nothing to be ashamed of. That shouldn't have happened to you. And Jesus is saying, let me cry with you. Show me where the bodies are buried. And then Jesus does what he does. He's like, hey, Lazarus, come forth. Like so nonchalant. Like, hey, I know we just cried for a lot. Now I'm just going to resurrect you. When my wife didn't know what to say, she wept. But then what's the next step? Here's how we'll end. I've said that twice now, I get one more. That's the rules of pastoring. I don't know if you know that. You get 3 times to say you're closing. Is that true? And she held my hand. She wept with me. And then she stood up. She began to sing. Now, my wife is not a singer. And she'll tell you that. I'm not being offensive. I didn't want to marry a singer because I'm too competitive. So I married someone who would appreciate my singing. But what do you do when you feel like God has gone silent? There is power in our words. And there's nothing more powerful than when those words become a song. And she began to sing and to worship, declaring that God is good. God is good even when life is not. She didn't know what to sing, so she sang my favorite hymn. Come thou fount of every blessing, tune thy heart. But she didn't know the words, so she made up her own words. And to this day, I remember those words. You are good, God. You are good, God. You are good, God. You are good. You are good, God. You are good, God. You are good, God. You are good. She began to walk around that room and worship. And she didn't say all the right words. And she didn't hit all the right notes. But it was authentic worship. It was real and it was raw. And I hadn't felt God's presence in weeks. And yet in that moment, when my faith was weak and her faith was strong, for the first time in weeks, I felt peace, as if peace was a person. Peace hovered into my hospital room. And my eyes got heavy, and I felt the peace and presence of God. And my eyes closed, and for the first time in 3 days, I fell asleep, and I slept so good for 15 hours. And then I woke up, and I watched football. Because I just needed to see someone hit somebody else. But this is why we come to church. Because I might be weak. And I need you to sing when I can't sing. and to pray when I can't pray. Not to judge me, not to tell me how I should be feeling, but to be strong when I am weak. And that's what my wife did for me. And I woke up the next day and I decided I'm not going to give up. Because if my wife didn't give up on me and God doesn't give up on me, then I'm not going to give up on me. And I made a list of 10 or 15 things I wanted to get done that day because I was just sitting in the hospital bed not being a productive citizen. So I came up with 10 or 15 things to do. I'm really proud of myself. Guess how many of those things I got done on my list? 0! Except for one. And it wasn't even on my list. But I got one thing done. And you know what it was? I didn't give up. And that was the only thing I got done that day. And the next day, my list was longer because I had to make up for yesterday. And you know how many things I got done? 1. But you know what it was? I didn't give up. And for the next week, I only had the energy to get one thing done. But you know what it was? I didn't give up. And that's the only reason I am standing here right now. So what do you do? What do you do when you feel like God has gone silent? You sing and you declare. Because I can promise you, Jesus is on every page of your story. He has not forgotten you. He has not left you. And I got to live this because I was told I would never sing again. I would never speak again. I got out of that hospital. I did all my chemo, all my radiation. I couldn't make a sentence for a year. I sounded ridiculous. Just gibberish. But I finally got to the point after speech therapy and prayer where I could kind of sing as long as they put subtitles. So I asked my pastor, I said, Pastor, I would like to sing a song I wrote. This is how I'm closing. See, boom, that's the third one. I said, Pastor, I would like to sing a song that I wrote. This was taken on July 2nd of a couple of years ago. And I said, I would like to sing a song I wrote called These Walls, all about choosing to worship God even when the walls are still standing. And I got to sing the song. And I thought that was the finale. That was it. That was great. I got to sing again. But then, you know how like Christians don't come every other Sunday, to church? So my pastor was like, a lot of people missed it. So let's put it on Facebook. We put the song on Facebook. It got 6 million views. It was picked up by NBC, Fox, the 700 Club, broadcast to millions of people around the world. And now the song I'm about to sing this morning is being sung in over 50 countries today. Translated in over 25 different languages. And now I can look back and be like, oh yeah, God was there the whole time. Because hindsight is 20/20. But next year, will I still make him resubmit his resume? Is God not good even when life is not? Has his character ever changed even when life changes around you? Is he still not worthy of your worship? Is he still not the one who sent his son to die on a cross and suffer for you? Has any of that changed? Your circumstances might have changed, but he's still the same. And he is worthy of your worship. And the best part was I got hundreds of emails from people who said, hey, if you're going to sing with no tongue, then I'm going to play piano and lead worship again, even though I lost my arm. I'm going to paint again, even though this disease really changed the way my fingers do painting. And I'm going to dance again, and I'm going to sing again. And I also lost my tongue, but if you're going to sing, then I'm going to sing. And hundreds of people around the world began contacting us saying, hey, if you're not going to give up, then I'm not going to give up. So whatever you're going through, it's not just for you. There are people who are going to be blessed and ministered to you, by you, because you didn't give up. So sing, and just keep singing, just keep singing. What do? We sing. So let's sing together this morning. You are greater than these walls I'm circling. You are stronger than this army that I see. You are bigger than the mountains that I face. I would choose to only praise you. Oh, this is my song, this is my dare, to worship you, even as these walls are standing there. This is my song, and this is my prayer. I will declare that nothing is too hard for you. There's nothing you can't do. I'll keep my eyes on you. I'll keep my eyes on you. 'Cause nothing is too hard for you. There's nothing you can't do. I'll keep my eyes on you. Watch these walls start crumbling down. Watch these walls start crumbling down. Down. Even in the suffering, I will sing. Even in my questioning, believe. You are always good, you're good to me. And I will sing, even in the suffering. Even in the suffering, I will sing. Even in my questioning, oh, I will believe. You are always good, you're good to me. I will say, yeah, this is my song, this is my day. Worship you, even as these walls are standing there. And this is my song, and this is my prayer. I will declare that nothing is too hard for you. There's nothing you can't do. I'll keep my eyes on you. I'll keep my eyes on you. 'Cause nothing is too hard for you. There's nothing you can't do. I'll keep my eyes on you. Here I am to worship. Here I am to bow. Come on, church. Come on, worship him, he's worthy. You're all together. All together. One more time, he's worthy. Here I am.